The family trip was unique and interesting for the family because essentially we have family all over the place. I have a sister in Hong Kong, I have sisters in Australia, and we're in Singapore, and my father was in Fiji before he retired. There's not many opportunities where the family come together and do things, so the trip itself was quite an experience. The photo book is actually titled Return of 100 Daughters,百女百耐in Cantonese. And I took straight documentary photographs in the sense that I just captured what sort of happened in front of me. So after I made the images, I made a sequence which is very sort of linear, from start of the trip to the end of the trip. And it's kind of interspersed with family sort of photographs. Back in the day when my father was a young man, my mother, and then they kind of interspersed with that road trip. It's sort of like two timelines running parallel, because I think time is very much an important factor. So a lot of people have actually asked me about the title of the book, 100 Daughters, 100 Patients, 100 Meals. Well, it's basically coined from my father's name. When my father was born, my grandparents went and saw a fortune teller, and the fortune teller told them that demon gods were out to get their firstborn son. So they tried to fool the demon gods by disguising my father as a daughter. That's why they called him百女, 100 girls in Cantonese. But when my father grew up, he changed it to patience, which is very similar sounding,百耐, noi sing, noi. And I cooked for the cookbook 100 meals, keeping in line the 100 concept. So that's why the title of the book is called 100 Daughters, 100 Patients, 100 Meals. So the recipes are inspired by my family's history and diaspora. Our roots as a rice farming village in Guangdong, Canton, China, to the South Pacific, Fiji, where I was born, and finally where we are now, Singapore, in Southeast Asia. I didn't want to mourn his loss. I wanted to sort of celebrate his life and his legacy instead. And his life and legacy is all about food. From the restaurant, being his entire life as a restaurateur and feeding people. So cookbook seemed a good way to celebrate that. So I first did the edit of the photo book in 2012, the sequence, the whole thing, and I showed it to my dad then. So essentially the final edit is pretty much the same. I didn't want to change the edit to what my father had seen because it's, in a large part, I feel a bit of regret that I didn't cook for my father. So I want to preserve something that he had experienced, that I did. Quite a few of the dishes are popular in my father's restaurant menu. These include chicken chop suey, chicken chow mein. There's a king prawn special because Fiji is in a Pacific island, so seafood was a big thing. There's a lot of curries as well because actually in Fiji, there's quite a big Indian population. They were brought over, by the British as indentured labourers. At home we're Cantonese, so a lot of the dishes are very traditional sort of Cantonese dishes as well. So it features some of the dishes not only in the restaurant but with what we ate at home that my dad cooks and my mum cooks as well. This includes soups, and I always say soups are the heart of every Cantonese meal. Even today when I cook dinner for the family, there's always a soup dish. Everything centers around soup, starts with a soup dish.